Before we begin today's story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy emotionally driven stories that stay with you long after the video ends. These stories aren't loud or rushed. They quietly settle into your heart. Claire arrived at the lake early that morning, hoping to find a little peace. For the past 2 years, life had felt heavy since her husband passed away. The world around her often seemed too loud, too demanding, while her heart was still full of memories she couldn't easily let go of. But here, by the quiet lake, everything felt different. She laid her towel carefully on the warm wooden dock. The gentle sunlight touched her skin while a soft breeze moved across the water, carrying the calm scent of nature. In front of her, the lake stretched endlessly like a silver mirror, reflecting the pale blue sky above. Birds called softly across the water, and leaves rustled along the shore. For the first time in a long while, Claire felt something she hadn't felt in months: peace. She closed her eyes and tilted her face toward the sun, listening to the gentle rhythm of the waves and distant laughter of children somewhere along the shore. For a moment, it felt as if time had slowed down, allowing her to breathe again without the constant weight of grief. Her thoughts drifted back to her husband, the life they had built together, the memories they had shared, and the sudden emptiness that had replaced his presence. Even now, the sadness remained, but here by the lake it felt softer, less overwhelming. This place held many memories. She remembered the days when the lake had been full of laughter, her husband sitting beside her, holding her hand, while their young son Daniel played along the shore, splashing water without a single worry in the world. The memory made her chest tighten slightly, but she didn't allow herself to fall into sadness. Instead, she focused on the present moment, the warmth of the sun, the sound of the water, and the gentle sway of the dock beneath her. Just as she began to relax, she heard soft footsteps approaching. When she opened her eyes, she saw her son Daniel standing a few feet away, holding 2 bottles of lemonade. His tall figure cast a long shadow across the dock. For a moment, Claire noticed how much he had grown. He looked stronger, more confident. Yet she could still see the little boy she remembered in his expression. "I thought you might want one," Daniel said quietly, offering her a bottle. Claire smiled, a small, genuine smile she hadn't felt in a long time. Their fingers briefly brushed as she took the lemonade, and she felt a simple warmth in her heart. Not anything complicated, just the comfort of being close to someone who truly cared. Daniel sat down beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. Together they looked out at the calm water, letting the peaceful silence speak for them. In that quiet moment, both of them understood something without needing to say it. Even after loss, even after years of grief, family could still find its way back to each other. And Claire realized that maybe, just maybe, this quiet morning by the lake was the beginning of healing. The quiet morning continued as Claire and Daniel sat side by side on the wooden dock, watching the sunlight dance across the calm surface of the lake. The breeze had grown slightly warmer now, and the distant sounds of birds and gentle waves created a peaceful rhythm around them. For a while, neither of them spoke. Sometimes silence between people who understand each other is more comforting than words. Daniel finally broke the quiet. His voice was soft, almost thoughtful. "I used to come here with Dad all the time," he said, keeping his eyes on the water. Claire felt a familiar tightness in her chest, but she nodded slowly. She remembered those days clearly, the fishing trips, the sandwiches packed in a small cooler, and the laughter that once filled the air. Back then, life had felt simple and complete. "I remember," she replied gently. "You two would leave before sunrise." Daniel smiled faintly. "And you always told us not to fall in the water." Claire laughed quietly at the memory. "And you still managed to fall in once." Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "I was trying to catch a frog," he said. They both laughed softly, the sound blending with the calm atmosphere of the lake. For a moment, the sadness of the past seemed lighter. As the conversation continued, Daniel began sharing things he rarely talked about. He spoke about work, the pressure of making the right choices, and the responsibility of building his own future. Claire listened carefully, realizing how much he had grown. The little boy who once played at the edge of the lake had become a thoughtful young man carrying his own worries. "I guess I just want to make Dad proud," Daniel admitted after a pause. Claire turned toward him, her expression gentle but firm. "You already have," she said. "More than you realize." Daniel didn't respond immediately, but the way he looked down at the water showed that her words meant something to him. After a moment, Claire spoke again, this time opening up about her own struggles. "There are nights when the house feels too quiet," she admitted softly. "Sometimes the memories are comforting, and sometimes they're just painful." Daniel listened carefully, nodding with quiet understanding. "I know," he said. "I feel it too." The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting golden reflections across the lake. Around them, life continued. Ducks glided peacefully across the water, and the leaves along the shore swayed gently in the breeze. Claire noticed the small things Daniel did without thinking. Adjusting the towel so she could sit more comfortably, offering her another sip of lemonade, and occasionally glancing at her with quiet concern. It made her heart swell with pride. Despite everything they had been through, despite the loss and the years of silent grief, they had somehow found their way back to each other. They began sharing more memories then, funny ones, happy ones. The time Daniel got lost during a family hike. The evening they told stories around the fireplace while rain tapped against the windows. Each memory carried both sweetness and sadness, reminding them of what they had lost, but also of what still remained. And as the morning continued beside the calm lake, Claire realized something important. Grief may change a family, but love, in its quiet and patient way, always finds a path back home. The morning slowly moved forward, and the bright sunlight now covered the entire lake. The calm water reflected the sky like a giant mirror, and the soft breeze carried the scent of trees and fresh water across the dock. Claire and Daniel remained seated side by side, both feeling a quiet comfort that neither of them had experienced in a long time. For years after her husband's passing, Claire had often felt alone, even when surrounded by people. Grief had created a silence in her life that was difficult to explain. But this moment felt different. Daniel leaned back slightly, stretching his legs out in front of him. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I almost didn't come today." Claire turned to look at him. "Really? Why not?" Daniel shrugged lightly. "I thought maybe you wanted to be alone," he admitted. "You've spent a lot of mornings here by yourself." Claire looked back at the water for a moment before answering. "Sometimes being alone helps," she said quietly. "But sometimes it's even better when someone shows up." Daniel smiled at that. A comfortable silence followed again. But this time it felt warmer, like the quiet between two people who understood each other. A small boat moved slowly across the lake in the distance, leaving gentle ripples behind it. Daniel watched it for a moment before speaking again. "Do you ever think about doing something different?" he asked. Claire raised an eyebrow slightly. "Different how?" "I mean something new," Daniel explained. "Traveling. Meeting new people. Just living again." His words were careful, respectful, but honest. For a moment, Claire didn't respond. The idea felt both exciting and unfamiliar. After so much time focused on surviving each day, she had rarely allowed herself to think about the future. But Daniel's question stayed with her. "I suppose I haven't really thought about it," she admitted. Daniel nodded. "Maybe it's time you did," he said gently. Claire studied her son's face. There was kindness in his expression. The same kindness she had always hoped he would grow into. "You sound just like your father," she said softly. Daniel laughed a little. "I'll take that as a compliment." The two of them continued talking as the morning turned closer to noon. Their conversation moved easily now, from old memories to small plans, from laughter to thoughtful pauses. At one point, Daniel stood up and stretched. "Want to walk along the shore?" he asked. Claire looked around at the peaceful lake, the bright sky, and the calm feeling that had settled in her chest. For the first time in a long while, the world didn't feel so heavy. She stood up beside him and smiled. "Yes," she said. "I'd like that." And together they stepped off the dock, walking slowly along the quiet shoreline, unaware that this simple morning together was already beginning to change both of their lives in ways they had never expected. Claire and Daniel stepped off the dock and began walking slowly along the quiet shoreline. The sand felt warm beneath their feet, and the gentle sound of the waves followed them like a soft melody. For a while, they simply walked side by side. The lake stretched peacefully beside them, and the sunlight reflected across the water in bright, dancing patterns. Claire felt lighter with every step, as if the weight she had carried for so long was slowly beginning to fade. Daniel picked up a small stone and tossed it lightly into the water, watching the ripples spread outward. "I used to try skipping these across the lake," he said with a small grin. Claire laughed softly. "You were never very good at it." "That's not true," Daniel replied with playful confidence. "I just needed more practice." They both smiled, enjoying the simple moment. As they continued walking, Claire noticed something she hadn't paid attention to in years: the beauty of the place around her. The tall trees swaying gently in the breeze, the sound of birds flying overhead, and the peaceful rhythm of the lake itself. It reminded her of how life used to feel before grief had filled her days. Daniel suddenly slowed his steps,